Hey, y'all. You hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. We are live on LinkedIn. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Wherever you all are, thank you for tuning in to Muck Rack's LinkedIn Live with our friends at Medbury. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I'm Linda Zebian. I'm the VP of Communications at Muck Rack, and I am absolutely delighted and thrilled. I've been waiting for this LinkedIn Live because I need to learn all about the strategies for how we can apply everything we know in PR, right? We know everything about media relations and how to get leaders' voices out there. Excuse me. And but LinkedIn is such a challenge, or can be such a challenge, right? It's a little bit of a black box, and we have the experts here with us. So I'm going to let Meredith and Julia introduce themselves now, and please, audience members, use the chat feature, use the comment feature to ask questions throughout, and we will try to get to as many questions as possible. So Meredith, let's start with you.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for having us. We also too have really been looking forward to this, and I'm excited to be doing it. So happy for everyone who's joining. My name is Meredith Farley. I'm the CEO and founder of Medbury, and we are an agency that focuses exclusively on LinkedIn. We work mostly with B2B brands, and we also create content for founders or public figures. I started Medbury a couple of years ago after spending about 15 years in the agency world and being in some C-level roles. And I realized, kind of akin to what Linda is saying, LinkedIn is an incredibly powerful platform, but it can feel a lot like a black box. And figuring out how to leverage it, monetize it, squeeze all the juice you can out of it is something that it's kind of a rare knowledge in some ways. So we have amassed so much LinkedIn knowledge. We are LinkedIn nerds at Medbury, and we're going to share a lot of actionable tips today that I hope you walk away feeling like you have a better sense of how to use your team's LinkedIn presence to generate press coverage. And then once you get that press coverage, how to really leverage it for brand awareness. And I'm really happy to be joined by Julia Lechner, who is our head of exec content. I'll let Julia introduce herself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm Julia Lechner. I'm head of executive content at Medbury, working closely with Meredith and our team to create content for our executives and brands across LinkedIn. I have a background leading content teams at organizations like Paramount and Nextdoor, and so thrilled to be part of Medbury. And in my free time, I like performing at storytelling shows. I'm a Moth Grand Slam winning storyteller, so I love storytelling posts on LinkedIn, and that's just one of the many post types we'll be diving into later today. So thrilled to be here.
All right.
We're just thrilled to have you. Okay, I'll let you guys take it away, and I will be monitoring the questions. And we'll just be leaving them throughout. So I'll let you guys take it away now. Go ahead.
Awesome, great. So let me move over. All right, we've already introduced ourselves. So the press are 100% on LinkedIn, and so are your customers. This makes your PR strategy on LinkedIn as a brand looking to get coverage a very cool and important one, because you can be speaking to both journalists and your ICP at the exact same time. What we're going to show you in this session is, number one, how to attract press via LinkedIn, meaning how to put up content that gets interest, traction, and coverage from journalists. And then once you do land coverage, how to promote it on LinkedIn in a successful way. And then part three, we're going to talk about some very cool tools and tactics that will let you nurture press and prospect relationships. So these are some awesome Muck Rack stats. I'm sure a lot of folks on this webinar read the amazing Muck Rack reports. I think they're so great. We never miss them at Medbury. We download them right away and I'll read them. So there's like a few stats I really want to call out here. One is that half of all PR pros say LinkedIn is the social media platform they value most, more than X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok combined. That's huge. And for good reason. You can get a lot of juice out of LinkedIn. These are some cool stats. 84% of PR pros say LinkedIn is their most valuable social platform. 61% as of end of year 2024 plan to spend more time on LinkedIn this year. And journalists are using LinkedIn daily to find sources, trends, and quotes. So if you want press, you need to be active on LinkedIn. And as I mentioned earlier, your ICP is on here too. So really strategic, high impact activity is going to serve your press and your brand, but it's also going to support your pipeline. 80% of B2B leads that come from any social platform come from LinkedIn. 65% of B2B companies have acquired a client via LinkedIn, meaning LinkedIn was what they saw and reached out after seeing a piece of content or being part of a campaign. And only 4% of companies post weekly. That is so minuscule, which means there's a ton of opportunity for brands who know how to do it right. It's easy to stand out. So first, the part one, we're going to talk about how to attract press on LinkedIn specifically. We talk a lot with our clients about proprietary data. This, from our perspective, is one of the best ways into attracting press via LinkedIn. A little simplistic here, but we say proprietary data is like catnip for journalists. And here's why. Reporters need data angles and credibility. And as I'm sure probably almost everyone on this call knows, reporters have less and fewer resources over time. They're trying to do a lot in a short amount of time. So if they see a post where there is proprietary research, meaning that the data you're sharing is specific to your organization, if they're interested in covering that data, they're going to reach out to you. We're going to talk too about visuals in the next slide. Posting with visuals is important because, and when I say visuals, usually we're talking about data visualizations like a chart or a graph that's specific to the proprietary data that you're sharing. The reason that is such a, I don't want to say hack, but an important and valuable step is because these strapped for resource journalists, if they see, oh, that's some really interesting stat or data that this brand has put out, I'm interested to cover that. And then they also see, and they have some really nice looking data visualizations that if I reached out to them and was running a story on this, I could ask for those and put them in our piece, which means their newsroom or publication doesn't have to spend time and resources on creating relevant visuals. It's very, very appealing. And when you're the only one sharing a data set or trend, you become the source for that info. And I know Muck Rack has been covering so much of this, so I won't get too into the weeds, but this is also a great way to show up in generated AI, ChatGPT, etc. So these are two examples of posts where the organization shared a stat or proprietary data and also included a really cool visualization with it. So if you're putting together a post that is specifically designed to share proprietary data, there are a couple little tweaks that can really make it perform well. The first is that you want to lead with data in the hook. So when we say hook, we mean this first little bit, the first line above the photo that one can see without clicking read more. That line is really valuable because that's what entices people to click read more and to engage with the post. If you're doing a post about proprietary data, most of the time you want to get a stat in the hook. Then you want these data visualizations. These are two cool examples. Charts and graphs are ideal. And this is something that Julia and I have found. And honestly, I think Medbury should do some proprietary data on this as I say it. But charts that go up and to the right, always a smash hit. We don't know what it is. It's something in folks' psychology. But sometimes if we're working with clients, working with their proprietary data, we'll specifically choose the stats that let us do an up and to the right chart to highlight in the post itself because we know that it performs so well. And then this one, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Meredith, just a question. So should we consider as PR folks, the hook almost if you're writing a pitch, like the subject line of an email,
Yes.
It's that valuable?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm going to steal that moving forward. 100%. That is the perfect way to think about it. It's like, if you don't get them on that hook or subject line, you're not going to get them. So yeah, I love that. That's the perfect metaphor. And then the final bit is that just a note is that it can sometimes be overwhelming for teams to be on a weekly basis, creating a couple of posts based on new proprietary data, creating the images. And what we've found has worked really well for a good chunk of our clients, and I'm sure a lot of you folks might be thinking about this or doing this already. Create your quarterly or biannual or even annual report full of your proprietary data, full of relevant charts and images, and then across the quarter or 6 months, you can, your comms or your social team can once or twice a week make sure to pull like a specific interesting little nugget or stat from it, use the relevant visual or create one, so that you're on a consistent basis getting these up and out there without having to start from scratch every single time. So that's just a little tip. And then the next thing we're going to talk through is if you are, there's one thing I do want to say before we jump into this next bit, which is that at Medbury, and I think increasingly for in-house teams, the brand page is important. The brand page is kind of like a website in that it needs to look cool, it needs to look branded, it can attract attention, but the best way to really drive performance and awareness is to post from individuals' profiles. People like to hear from people. They like to hear from leaders instead of brand pages. And LinkedIn actually significantly prioritizes posts that come from people versus posts that come from a brand page. Your brand page needs to have about 5,000 followers before it'll even start to get a fraction of the impressions and engagement that a post from an individual would. So one thing we do a lot of is going in and working with teams to clean up all of their executive or leaders profiles, make them look really consistent and make them look actually make them super optimized so that if their team or us are creating content and posting on behalf of those leaders, they're coming from a profile that, number one, is designed to perform and attract followers. And number two, if folks navigate over to it because they're interested in what they're seeing, it's going to tell them a bit more about the company. It's going to be consistent, represent them in a good way, and ideally have a few little pathways to learn more, whether that's signing up for a company newsletter, booking a demo, clicking over to a website. So I'm going to kick it over to Julia, and she is going to walk us through exactly how to optimize a profile for yourself or for your executive team.
Great. Thanks so much, Meredith. And that was awesome. If this is getting any juices flowing, I'd love to hear in the comments if anyone's already thinking of some posts around proprietary data that they want to share. So diving into profile examples, we're going to use my LinkedIn profile as an example here. And we have a helpful checklist on the left-hand side to walk through your LinkedIn profile. And we're really starting with the top of that real estate. That's the most prominent part of the profile, and then working our way down in a completionist fashion to get everything filled out on your LinkedIn profile. So as Meredith mentioned, a strong profile builds trust. It helps people understand what you do and why it matters. And to start, we can head to the next slide and we'll talk profile photos. So here's the profile photo I'm currently using on my LinkedIn. Took this last year, so it's up to date. That would be my first tip. What do you look like currently? Take a nice, clear, warm, well-lit, face-forward photo. We do recommend smiling and looking at the camera so people feel like, you know, they're shaking your hand at a networking event and getting to know you personally. There's a lot of different options for your profile photo. This is one that I actually snapped at home in front of a blue background for myself, took it on a camera. You can also use an iPhone to take your own photo. There's smartphone options that get really great photos with that focused profile photo and the blurry background behind you. There are even AI tools now that will help you generate headshot photos. So you upload several photos of your face and it will give you business headshot options. Something else we really like to recommend is a lot of the teams we write for have offsites or company get-togethers throughout the year. That can be a really great opportunity to get your team together and say, hey, we've either got a photographer on site, or hey, between sessions, we're going to take someone's smartphone and take a really nice crisp photo of each person to help them update their LinkedIns together. So those are our main recommendations for profile photos. For a banner image, this is the current banner image that I am using. We recommend something that's clean and aligned with your role or company. We do recommend avoiding stock photos or clutter in your profile images and banner images. This banner image is one that I actually created myself. There are tools available like Canva and other tools where you can create your own graphics very simply and cleanly, or outsourcing those options. You can also use a banner image that's recommended by your company. When we work with companies and clients, we often generate banner images in-house for them to highlight their current offerings or portfolio companies that they'd like to show. And this is just one example of what you can use for a banner image. Heading to the next slide. Headline. So this is that text that you see underneath your name on LinkedIn. Headline is a really important piece of real estate on LinkedIn because not only is that the first bit of text you're going to see as you're scrolling down my profile, but that headline follows you around on LinkedIn. So you'll notice that when you're in the feed and you're commenting on people's posts, that the first few characters of your headline are showing up across that LinkedIn feed. So it's really great to take full advantage of the character count for that headline section on your LinkedIn profile to fill it out and to really front load the most important information you'd like to highlight toward the front of that headline, since people will be seeing it in their LinkedIn feed. For our about section, this is my current about section. We do recommend writing in a first person voice. Some folks choose third person as well, but something we really love about the first person voice is ultimately, we want it to be personable. We want it to sound like you. We want people to know that when they DM you, they're going to be speaking with you directly. We encourage you to tell a short story about how you got to where you are in your career today, what you care about, what you're focused on now. I also recommend including a few fun or personal facts toward the end, like I have here. I'm a former college mascot. That's always an interesting icebreaker thing to share. So including something like that gives people something quirky and interesting to mention when they hit you up in the DMs and you start a conversation together. Heading to the next slide, experience section. This is where you highlight all of your current and former roles that you've worked with. I really like to recommend doing a bullet point format similar to what you would do in a resume. Makes it easy for scanning as people go through your profile. This is a place to really share everything you can. You know, resumes are often 1 to 2 pages, but on a LinkedIn profile, you have a lot more real estate to work with. Really highlight and quantify those wins that you've had across your career. And as you can see, you can also add in skills under your experience section, images and media as well. So for example, under Medbury, I have my podcast appearance on Content People as one of the things that I'd like to highlight. So you can attach projects, media clips, and other things you're proud of under those experience sections. Heading to that next slide, featured section. So again, really great real estate toward the top of your page. This is essentially a place to pin some of the things you want people to see first. If you're a consistent poster on LinkedIn, which I know you will be after this presentation, your posts can, start to go away chronologically, so you won't see every post at the top of your page. So you can pin some of your top performers to that featured section. So currently what you'll see here is I have some podcast appearances that I've done. Something we recommend to clients and folks we work with is go through this area quarterly perhaps, or a few times a year, and pin those top performing posts that seem to really resonate with your audience, as well as any other links, podcast appearances, or articles you'd like to highlight. So heading to the next slide, this is a bonus. So for those of you looking for extra credit, other things you can take advantage of are a custom URL at the top of your page, somewhere where you'd like to send folks, whether that's your company website or a new product offering that you may have. Endorsing for skills, you can endorse your colleagues and have them endorse you as well. As you can see, storytelling and LinkedIn are 2 skills that I like to highlight on my profile. And many folks don't know this, but in addition to being endorsed, you can actually change the order of your endorsements. So if you have some endorsements that you're a little more excited about that you'd like to move to the top, that is an option on LinkedIn. So one quick teaching tip that we have is you have more to post about than you think on LinkedIn. One of our clients was actually added to a B2B thought leaders list within 6 months of consistent posting throughout the week, and now is quoted in news articles for their expertise. So when you show up on LinkedIn, people really do take notice and they start to see you as a subject matter expert in your line of work. So we really recommend showing up consistently. And moving through the presentation, we're going to share some more ways you can do that and some post types that will help you do so. So I'm going to kick it back over to Meredith.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia. And Linda, I think you said there might be a few questions coming in. We could pause and try and take them now.
Yeah, let's get into a couple of questions. Carling asked, what's your take on an exec sharing a company post with commentary versus sharing an original post from scratch. I'm so curious about this one too, because I never know, like, should I retweet with commentary? Should I do an original post on the same topic?
I love this question. So there's a really helpful fact to be mindful of is that if you reshare a post with your own commentary up top, it's going to do significantly less well than an original post. So if your goal is just to give a little bit of a bump to that exec's content and you don't have time to write a post and it's better than nothing, do it. But if you're at all invested in sharing, like, for example, if an exec was sharing a big company update, what we'll often do is then go in and create custom posts for all of the other leadership team and post for them or give the copy to them for them to post, because it is so worth the time to craft something that's a unique post to them and specific to the individual if you're really trying to drive impressions, awareness, really drive a significant amount of attention around those things. So if your intention is to really amplify an event, for example, do your own post. If it's better than nothing, a reshare is better than nothing. Also, sharing with comment is okay. But what I would actually say is if you don't really have time to do your own post, but for example, you wanted to amplify a CEO's content, click repost with no note. That's just going to help their post get more visual and activity than if you repost with your own commentary on top. So the best, if you're all in, create your own post. That's going to get way more eyeballs than just resharing somebody else's with your own thoughts. If you just want to help their content perform, repost with no notes. And the third, the lowest on the totem pole is reposting with your own commentary.
That's so interesting. And you wouldn't think that just a regular repost would be better than a repost with commentary. So super, like, noted. In similar vein, Carrie asks, if LinkedIn prioritizes the individual, do you recommend the company reposting the individual's post? So should the company repost an individual's post or write their own?
If say for the CEO, say you put together a unique piece of content for the CEO, I would say that you could then certainly repost it to the company page. If you were like, we only have time to do one post, do that instead of a company page post. If you have to choose, does this come from the company page or from a leader? Always choose the leader. And if you don't have time to recraft something fresh for the company page, then just have the company page repost the leader's post. If you have more time and resource, then what we might often do would be write the post for the CEO, for example, repost it to the company page that day, and then a couple days later, do a unique post for the company page. That's kind of the same thing, sharing the same message, but written in the voice of the company page as opposed to from an individual.
And then just to like push on that a little bit more, would you then like link to the CEO's post, like if it was really like taking off, or just completely disregard the CEO's post altogether?
You mean
or tag them? Like, would you connect at all to the company's original like thought leadership point of view, or just like, or connect at all to that post? Like, how do you make that decision?
So, all right, let's say for this example that the CEO has posted a viral proprietary data post and it's taking off. So there's a cool stat from that the company has. It's proprietary to the company. You put like a banger of a post together. You share it from the CEO's page. And important when writing from people is it's from his point of view or her point of view. It says it's written from a person, and it's written in language that is authentic and grounded from a person, and not just press release copy or marketing copy pasted into a CEO's profile. So you've crafted the post from the CEO. It's authentic. It's from his page. let's say it goes viral. So I'm just walking myself through your scenario, Linda. I would then repost from the company page, same day you post the CEO post, just the repost, not repost with comment, just the little repost button. I would plan a similar post about a week out that is from the company page point of view. And in the middle, that's all I do. I wouldn't repost with commentary from the company page, the CEO's thing. And you could tag the CEO. And so at the bottom, you could say you're writing the company page post. You could do something like, and if you haven't already, like, our CEO, Susan, wrote about this last week. You can go give her a follow here and you could tag.
Yeah, okay.
So you could like acknowledge it, which is also cool because it makes the company page feel like real people as opposed to just,
Right. It's a great tip.
But and also too, it's such a balance. On one hand with LinkedIn, there's some stat that's like, if you posted every day, every business day for a month, only like a small portion of your followers would see a handful of your posts. So on one hand, it's about repetition, but on the other, especially with company pages, those are something that people tend to navigate to later. So they'll be like, oh, I want to check out this company and see what's up with them. So that's one where you don't want 4 posts in 1 week where you're posting, reposting again, the same thing. You want to be mindful of the like more permanent long-term timeline there, not being too redundant. It's a balance.
Great tips. Paul has a question about tools, and I know that we're going to talk about that now. So it's actually a great segue. So let's keep going.
Okay, cool. The tool section is actually a little bit. It's section 3.
Okay.
I think it's 1 to 2. Is that okay? But we will cover.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about how to leverage and celebrate coverage on LinkedIn. So what we're presuming is you have been doing proprietary data posts, journalists are reaching out, you are getting coverage in places like Forbes, the New York Times, or wherever is relevant. But this is how you can take the press coverage that you do get, the article link, the mention, and really leverage it to serve your brand and speak to your ICPs. So the first rule is don't post it once. Post it right and post it multiple times. One of the biggest, mistakes, though I know it's often tied just to resource and expertise, but I would say a misstep that a lot of brands make is they land an amazing piece of coverage and they post about it once. Maybe they post about it once from the company page, or maybe they do a couple posts from the company page and a few of their leaders, but then it disappears. You can you can create content about your Forbes coverage a year later, and it's still supporting your brand. So what we're going to talk through here there are maybe about, I would say, 16 kind of archetypal post types that we've kind of honed in on at Medbury, all of which have their specific little tips and tricks for how to really make them perform and what their purpose is. And there are 4 that we love to leverage when it comes to amplifying PR coverage. So we're going to walk you through a milestone post to leverage PR coverage, a thought leadership style post, a spiky point of view, and personal storytelling. And first, so a milestone post. This is the most direct, like, hey, we just had a big win. And in the context of PR coverage, the big win is, hey, we were just featured in Forbes. So here are some things to keep in mind when you're putting together this post for your leaders and executives and your brand page. And I would say this should be like your first port of call. If you land coverage, put together one of this style of post for all the leaders on your team and for your brand page, and you can spread it out over a week. But the first thing you want to do is highlight the achievement in the hook. So this is kind of like the subject line you mentioned earlier, Linda. So if this, like today, I can finally share my CPG business we'll be launching this fall, that would be the hook. So if you were promoting Forbes coverage, for example, it would be very direct in that first line to say something to the effect of, our whole team is so proud and thrilled to be covered in Forbes this week. People should not have to click read more to know that this post is about you all being covered in Forbes. The next thing is to use photos if you can, or striking imagery. team photos work so well for any big company win or announcement. So if there's a full group at an offsite or all of the leadership team, those are like gold, and they will significantly improve your post performance. If you don't have any of those, then you want to make sure that the image you post it with is kind of arresting and will stand out in a sea of very formatted, boring B2B imagery. This example is really cool. It's an unexpected font for LinkedIn. The colors are vibrant. It's like got kind of organic lines. Do your best to keep it interesting and unexpected. And I say one kind of tip we do for remote teams that could be helpful is if you all have not been together in person for a year, you could do a Zoom call where it's all your faces and do a screen grab. And that actually can work really, really well. So if you're like, we want to do a photo of ourselves, but we're all across the country or the world, that is an option. The third thing for these posts is tight copy. You want to keep it short. This is not like a novel about how hard the journey to get here was and all the things. It is about 750 characters or less. And at the end, you want to say thank you. And this is also a great space to tag folks. So for example, if this was from the CEO's page and it was announcing coverage in the New York Times, maybe she wants to thank her executive team who's like worked so hard to get to a level that can get this recognition, and maybe even the journalists who they worked with on this story. One thing that a lot of folks struggle with when doing these like direct, hey, this is a big win post, is that they don't want to feel or sound braggy. And one thing that we always say is that gratitude is the antidote to arrogance. So if you're worried about coming off like a little too braggy, use the opportunity to say thank you. So for a milestone post, it's a super direct way to express the win. In the hook, you want to name the win. Then in the 750 characters or so remaining for you for this type of post, you want to explain the win. So you want to say, this article is about blank, etc. You want to say thanks and tag folks where relevant. And then you want to post it with a really cool image that is a great photo of the team, a Zoom photo of the team, or a really, really cool illustration. Linda, we're going to move into 3 more post types. Any questions on that one?
That's great. Love it.
Okay. All right, Julie, I'll kick this over to you.
Yes, and I love milestone posts. So I hope that's inspired some ideas for folks in the chat. It's always fun to celebrate things. Moving into thought leadership, this is a different type of post type that we recommend. Here's some of the best practices for it. So for a thought leadership post, we do recommend an interesting hook. That first sentence, again, keeping it punchy, tight to grab that attention. A hook truly is, we're trying to hook people in so they want to hit the ellipses and read the rest of your post while they're scrolling through. Using photos and videos wherever appropriate. So the example we've pulled here is someone working in ed tech who's focused on multilingualism and why it's important to create ed tech products for all learners. So we really wanted to make sure we hooked folks in with that first sentence, and then also to include a prominent photo or video. In this case, we see that the person has shared a video of them sharing more of their perspective. We really include, this is a very key point for thought leadership. Just focus on one piece of information, one point of view, one key idea. There can be a temptation to say, I'm a thought leader. I've got dozens of things I want to say about this topic I'm super passionate and experienced in. Those are each their own LinkedIn post. So instead of putting multiple facts, point of views in one piece of content, we really do recommend focusing on one point of view, one key idea or takeaway that you'd like for people to take from that post. And you can find different ways to approach that and do another post in the future, maybe with a different angle or a different way in. But again, really just focusing on one thing that you want people to come away with when they're reading that thought leadership post. It can also be paired with a CTA or a promotional action. In this case, we've pointed people to learning more about this EdTech product. It could be, we have a new tool that we've launched on our website, a new article where we're featured. I just wrote a column for this publication, learn even more about this, to have that toward the end to push folks to another area. However, thought leadership can also stand alone without a CTA. You're just showing your expertise in your field and then having people follow you along for more great content. Moving on to,
I'll just say one thing on this, Julia, is that to tie it back to press coverage. So for example, if you are doing a thought leadership style post about an interview, you would focus on one idea from that interview. That's what you'd talk about. And then the CTA would be like, click here to read this whole interview with more. So that's a different way to repurpose that coverage from a thought leadership perspective.
yes,
Can I
I
just
love
ask,
that.
can I just ask one question too about when you're posting thought leadership, like let's say you're using like a newsjacking thought leadership moment, right? We do that a lot in PR, right? We take a moment and we are experts. We have a SME, a subject matter expert that can speak to it. So we want to post something on LinkedIn for a thought leadership moment. Do we use are hashtags still a thing? Are they a thing on LinkedIn? Should we use them? Should we encourage our execs to use them? What's the best practice there?
The max amount of hashtags that a LinkedIn will even recognize in a post anymore is 3. So if you put 10 in, the last 7 are not registered in any capacity. The first 3, I don't really think people follow hashtags. We tend to not overuse them. One thing that's interesting about hashtags, though, is that if you put hashtags in a post, the URL of the post will include those hashtags. That doesn't impact the post from an SEO perspective because they're after the point in the URL that search indexes. But I think the jury is still out as to whether or not that is going to be a relevant aspect of AI and if they're going to be searching those.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that it is. I don't know. I think we're kind of over hashtags. We don't find them to be that beneficial. If they feel organizing for the company, it can help. And one area we do use them actually is really very related to this. We have a few clients who do like a proprietary data post series. So it's like once a week, we'll do a post that is specific to their proprietary data. And we use the same hashtag in every post. The reason there is because users who click that hashtag can go see all of the posts that we've posted for them under that kind of post style. So there is still some UX. I don't think that it is, I don't worry about it too much, and you don't need to include hashtags. If you got really, really nerdy about it and you found like the exact right moment to use them to help users find groups of posts from your brand, that could work. But I think people stress out about them too much and they're kind of like not that relevant anymore. All right, so I can move on here. Julia, we got spiky point of view.
Perfect. So a spiky point of view, this is an arresting narrative hook where we want to get people hooked in on a point of view that we want to share. This is not a hot take for the sake of causing controversy on LinkedIn. It's a way to share an opinion that you have. We really recommend keeping these short, around 750 characters, and for a 7th grade reading level or below. We recommend keeping them interesting, not aggro. Again, we're not looking to cause controversy just to get people fighting in the comments, but looking to share a point of view that we're, passionate about on LinkedIn, something that you're comfortable defending, something you're comfortable having on a professional site. And we encourage that they be relevant and tied back to an organization's goals. One way I like to think of a spiky point of view is if you have something in your industry where you have someone on your team who's been doing this work for 20 years and they say something like, a lot of the industry thinks this, but in my experience, I've actually noticed that. That's a way that you can kind of generate a spiky point of view. Like in my experience, this common industry tip, it's a little more nuanced than that. Or in my experience, I've noticed something different and I'd like to share it. I think that's a great way to approach a spiky point of view out of your own personal expertise and lived experience, as opposed to a hot take for the sake of a hot take. But again, keeping it punchy, attention grabbing really gets people engaged, and you can have a great conversation in the comments that's really respectful about that point of view. Personal storytelling, one of my personal favorite forms of content on LinkedIn. Again, this is sharing a personal story from your life on LinkedIn. Some of the best practices for this type of post, again, an interesting, tight hook to get people into the post. This one here that we've included as an example has a very direct, powerful hook. In 2018, I shaved my head right before a photo shoot. That creates some intrigue. It's very direct. Again, we recommend using photos, especially because if it's a personal story that can be relevant. We've especially noticed this isn't necessary for every personal storytelling post. However, nostalgic or throwback photos often perform quite well. So if it is something like, I played on my college tennis team and it taught me this, that kind of thing. People love seeing you back in the day. People love seeing haircuts that maybe we don't have anymore. So showing a photo from your past can really help, support the post and also grab some attention too. You can have your copy be a little bit longer for the storytelling post to really walk people through that narrative. A story should have a beginning, middle, and an end, a resolution at the end. So you can have a bit more, room with that copy character count as you're putting together that post. But something we really do encourage, and it's a question we get a lot about personal storytelling posts, is essentially, why share this on LinkedIn? Why is LinkedIn the place to do this? So it is important when approaching a personal storytelling post to ask that why, to tie it back to, how this relates to your organization, why this prompted you to make this career change, why this inspired this new tool or product that's really important to you, why this has helped you help your client base. So it can be a personal story from your life, but ultimately still serves the goal of, and that inspired me to do this, or that's why we're building this. So it's still, though it says personal storytelling, it can still relate to a professional platform and story that you're looking to share on LinkedIn. And there's some really great examples of this. So if any resonate with you, I'd love to hear, which ones you love seeing. But again, a really great spot to let LinkedIn know a bit more about you as a full human beyond just the general corporate announcements or news. So some really fun approaches you can take to those personal storytelling posts. And now we can head on to the next section.
Sorry, just to jump in here on this one, Julia, just to tie this one back to PR coverage too. Like this example here is an incredible client of ours, Jen, who had a cancer diagnosis. She is full remission, fully recovered. But there was an interview with her about that process. So we did the full thing. We did the milestone post to share the interview. We did, and this was another approach that we took to a few months later, create another piece of content that promoted that interview. We used this awesome photo from the interview, and we did more of a personal storytelling where she was talking about her experience as a cancer survivor who is now a founder. And at the bottom, it was like, if you'd like to read more, I was interviewed about this a few years ago at blank. So this is another way that you can skin content that's designed to promote the coverage that you got, but in a less obvious way. And now we're going to talk about the tools. So this part is, and this will be helpful. We use a number of tools with the goal of taking the awareness that content can generate on LinkedIn and kind of helping to organize your audiences and pull folks a little bit down funnel. Specific to what we're talking about today, I want to walk through some options where you can automate personalized LinkedIn outreach from your executives, send connection requests and follow-up messages, and segment your audience by press and prospects, and sometimes talk to the two at once together. So there are a bunch of tools we use. One tool we like a lot is Dripify. And what you can do with Dripify is hook it up to the back of your executives' profiles, and you can create lists, upload those lists, and then tell it to take specific actions. This actually can marry incredibly well with Muck Rack, because if you're creating and organizing your press list, you might have a list of maybe, let's say, 100 journalists who are really active in your industry, and you want your execs to be on their radar. So you can go in and create sequences where you say, I want Susan's profile to be connecting with everyone on this list of 100 journalists. I want her profile to like a piece of content from them once a week automatically. That's not nothing. You do that over a year, you could be growing your leaders' audiences by thousands of followers and making them and making sure that the folks that are becoming their followers are the journalists or the ICPs that you want to be following them and seeing their content. Because you can also send DMs to any list that you upload, it's a great way to, via DM, also share to your list of journalists proprietary data. So say you published a white paper, and say you're working with a list of about 100 journalists, you could send a DM to each of them and just say, hey, we published this last quarter. We think you might like it. It's a lot of proprietary research. We have stats, we have images that we're happy to provide to you, and our exec team is available for quotes or interviews. If you're interested, let us know, or here's a link to book time if you want to reach out. You can also use it to invite folks to webinars. So if your organization is hosting a webinar and you maybe want journalists to come to it, or perhaps ICPs, it doesn't, or other than a webinar, it could be another type of event or an earning call, you can send them all custom invites via the tool to really amplify the amount of folks that join these things and make sure that they're the journalists and ICPs that you want at them. And then, so that's kind of press, is you can use it to connect, have your leaders connect with journalists, like their content automatically, share share content with journalists, like send those journalists a DM to be like, hey, here's our white paper, or hey, we think you might want to come to this webinar. We're going to share some really cool stuff. You can also create sequences to your ICP list, so your prospects and customers. You can reference recent coverage. So say you get a big Forbes article, you can send a bunch of your ICPs a DM that says like, hey, we just got a really, really cool coverage in Forbes. Here's the link if you want to check it out. We talk about XYZ. It could be relevant to you. If you ever want to have a chat, would love to. So it's another way beyond just posting on LinkedIn that you can be using these lists that you're curating and reaching out to them and sending them DMs. And you can also use the press as social proof to warm cold leads. So say you got that Forbes article, maybe you have a list of 200 ideal customers that you've never talked to. Have execs connect with them, and then send a really human, thoughtful DM to be like, wanted to introduce ourselves. Here's an article. We got some coverage, tells you a little bit about us. Would love to have you on our email list, for example. So it can be really powerful. And then another really great LinkedIn tool that I think people under leverage when it comes to trying to get PR are thought leadership ads. We run these for clients a lot. Thought leadership ads are a particular ad style on LinkedIn where you take a post from an employee or an executive and you turn it into an ad and you run it to a specific list. So what we like to do would be, all right, this is like the perfect scenario. You've got proprietary data for your executive team. Let's say your CEO, you've put together a really cool post where you're like, here's the stat, here's the graph, it's really performing well. You could then take that post and turn it into a thought leadership ad and promote the ad to the list of journalists that you're trying to get to cover you. So the post goes up, that's great. You run an ad to the journalists that you're trying to target. They're going to see that. And if you're also sending like DMs via a tool like Dripify, for example, there's organic content they could spot. There's an ad they're getting served, and they're getting DM messages from you being like, hey, we put together this report. We think it's super relevant. We're totally available if you ever want to chat. It can be really high impact. Brands can, of course, also do the exact same thing to ICPs. So you can create content designed to really hook your ICP. You could run campaigns via DM tools to that ICP list, and then you could run a thought leadership ad to that exact list to just have like a third avenue through which they're getting a lot of touch points from you. And then we're done, Linda. So we've got time for questions. I'm not sure if you've got any in there that you want us to cover.
This was so helpful. I mean, I love the kind of tying it all together, like by just using ads, by using press coverage. There's just so much that we can do on LinkedIn. And I mean, I know that for like me personally, LinkedIn has become such a lever for us, for our comms team to just like give what we do such legs beyond, right? Media landscape is like contracting in comms and PR, right? And also, like, I'd love to understand, um, like, what you guys see in terms of journalists and LinkedIn moving from X. I think X has its value for in journalism, and I mean, I know our research and our surveys find that some folks in PR and some journalists, because we do also a lot of research with our journalist community. Some journalists are still on X for sure, but they are definitely moving toward LinkedIn, towards Threads, towards Blue Sky, other platforms. But it definitely feels more spread out than like X was always like a central place for journalists. I
Yeah.
do think that journalists are moving to LinkedIn, but do you have any observations or tips for interacting with journalists on LinkedIn? Do you feel like they're open? I feel like some are. I'm even seeing more increases in like working on a story post, like
Yeah.
comment with like comment here or send me an email from journalists. So just curious if you have any observations or tips on actually engaging with journalists on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Um, okay, a couple of things come to mind for me. One is that I think they're definitely on here and they're definitely sourcing for stories. I think I see a ton of what you're talking about. And there are a few I follow who are like, this is the story I'm working on, DM me for info, or if you have a pitch, etc. And increasingly, I've seen journalists who have their own newsletter where they put out, this is what I'm working on for this quarter. If you have, I only accept pitches that are like sent to me from this, like from subscribers of this newsletter. And a few journalists who I know who do that every single time they put out a new newsletter, they post about it on LinkedIn. So whether it's a great place to follow how the journalists you want to be covering you want to be pitched. I would say, like anything, you do want to be careful not to spam these folks. So in the same way that you wouldn't just like put out a big spammy blast to a carefully curated list of like 30 journalists you're really honing relationships with, you want to be careful not to put like huge automated LinkedIn, like 8-drip spammy sounding campaigns to these folks. That's a great way to alienate them. But what's really cool about LinkedIn is that, say there are 30 to 50 journalists that your brand would love to get covered by, you should have a list of those folks in a spreadsheet and a link to all their LinkedIn profiles. And someone on the team should be going in once a week to like and comment positively on any posts they put out, to view their profile, to be supporting and like warm toward what they put out so that you're at least on their radar and they have like positive interactions with you. Something else we have seen happen for our clients and also for Medbury too is that sometimes you can develop a nice relationship with a journalist, but maybe like it's not the right pitch at the right time. But by consistently posting, you stay on their radar. And sometimes 6 months later, they come back around. And for example, we were featured in Forbes, and the email we got from the journalist about it was like, hey, I just saw the post you put up about this type of LinkedIn thing. Would love to work with you on an article about that. And that was maybe 6 months or a year after we'd first connected. So one, you need to look at whatever they're doing actively and engage with it, like it, positive, like comment positively. And then two, keep showing up so that they remember you and they will reach out to you when the time is right. So that's helpful, I think.
Yeah, I think that's like a very it's like an applicable tip that we use in comms too. Like keep showing up in email, even like, oh, I saw your great piece on X today, and like just reaching out to them when you don't have anything to pitch them, like you don't actually, just being a regular human. I
Yeah.
think it applies in the social world too. I want to address Andy's comments about not having proprietary data. What other kinds, like, does it make sense? It made me think, does it make sense to take somebody else's proprietary data and share it? Like, does that make you more visible? Like, or what are some other kind of original ways to get your brand out there outside of proprietary data?
Totally. Yeah. Proprietary data is great when it comes specifically to coverage, but there's so many different content types you can put out there when you're just trying to like show up in a helpful way. There are like 16 or so main post types we work with, but a few that can be really helpful. Number one, once a month or once a quarter for each of your execs, they could do a community update post where maybe there's been promotions on the team, cool wins for the brand, and cool wins for people in the brand's network. So maybe it's if it's for a CEO, for example, he might want to shout out, so-and-so got promoted to VP. We launched this product. We got coverage here. And I also want to shout out a friend of mine just launched his own blank. So you can pull some personal things in, but like a community update post can be a cool way to just show up consistently. And if you really want it to perform, what they should do is put a small personal update at the end with a photo. So for example, there's an exec in our network. She had a grandchild born. She had a lot of professional updates. And then at the end, it was like, and one really cool personal update from me. I'm a grandmother, photo of her with her grandbaby. As you can imagine, like 100,000 impressions. So that's a cool way to just, tag folks, thank them. Personal storytelling posts don't have to be tied to press. As we talked about it here, they were, but you can kind of mine your execs for stories that are relevant, like a personal story that's relevant to the work they do. You can, there's personal storytelling posts, community update posts, there's thought leadership posts. Don't have to be based on proprietary data. They could be based on experience for sure. You could be sharing resources. You can be sharing webinars. You can be sharing updates. It does not have to be proprietary data based. I would say there's a science to making sure that the post has enough meat to it, that it's tangible and worth reading, and it doesn't feel like a bit of fluffy content from an exec who's showing up to just show up. You don't want to do that. But there's a lot of ways to do that. There's a lot of story mining that to be done for LinkedIn.
Awesome. Okay, wait, we have 3 minutes and I wasn't going to ask one more question, but I do want to just ask one more question. How do you ensure working with execs is more collaborative? And do you have any helpful tips for content planning meetings to just create like a great calendar with your exec team?
Totally. Okay. So Julia just reminded me, if someone is like, I want more tips on how to show up beyond proprietary data posts, here's a QR code. It'll bring you to a page on our website where you can download a doc where we have 8 post types with a lot of info on how to make sure that that particular post type performs. So but to the question you just asked, Linda, one thing we do is on a quarterly basis for most of the folks that we create content for, we'll do a voice interview. And it's a list of questions about what they're working on, what they're thinking about, what's going on in their personal life, how they're feeling about the industry, etc. We record it. And then what we do is we sit down and we try and overlay what we know the main messages for the brand are that quarter versus what's happening in the life of and in the headspace of that exec. Where do they overlap? And it's really easy once you get good at this to come up with like 20 or so pieces of content off the back of those meetings. And I would say too that one thing Julie and I talk about a lot is that the best LinkedIn posts are really just one main idea. So if you have an hour-long conversation with someone and you're interviewing them about everything they're working on, and you're also thinking strategically in the background, how can I turn this into like one bite-sized little story idea, something that serves our brand and serves the leader well? It does start to get, I don't know, you have to practice. It's a muscle to flex for sure. But I think anyone with like a PR background is going to be really good at that.
Well said. Yeah. I think that's great. This is such a great way to end it. I can't thank Julia and Meredith enough for an hour of like their time. I felt like a sponge. I felt like I was taking notes rapidly. We're going to take all of these tips at Muck Rack and apply them to our own LinkedIn strategy. This will be available on demand right after this at the same link. So anyone who's here, if you want to share this with anyone who couldn't make it today, it's just rewatchable on LinkedIn right here, right where we are right now. So check it out, share it, grab those tips, scan the code, comment and engage with Julia and Meredith on this page or separately on LinkedIn, where it all happens, where all the magic happens anyway. So it's all meta. We love it. Thank you for your time, everyone. And we'll catch you on our next LinkedIn Live. Have a great rest of your week.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.